Hello, everyone. So I've been meaning to make this video for a long time. I'm writing a book on this, physics of the universe and the vibrational evolution of consciousness. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail here, but I have a speech impediment, so I've been afraid to do this, but I'm just going to do it anyway. If you have a problem with my stuttering, oh well. So this presentation is kind of a go-between between the scientific universe and the spiritual universe. So if you're watching this as a spiritual person, this may be a little bit too in the weeds, too humorous. Don't take things as serious. Too many big words. Might not like it. If you're a scientist, I'm going to be using the word God here. Apologize if that offends you, but that's what this is. All right. So a little bit about me. I have a master's degree in engineering, a high IQ. I'm autistic and socially awkward and a spiritual goofball. We all are what we are. My autism is part of what makes this presentation possible. I'll explain that later. And I'm a general human disaster. And so this video is going to reflect that. And I'm not going to try to make it perfect. I'm only going to do one take, and whatever's supposed to come out is going to come out. So first of all, I like to do a graph. I like graphs because I'm a nerd. This has been my vibrational experience in this life. These colors are significant. These are the various bands of human consciousness as they're experienced. And I started out real young, and I got thrown into the pool by my grandfather, and that kind of like was the shock of this life. And oh, I'm in a physical body. And then I was radically agnostic, so I kind of like gradually fell down through the vibrations, away from the spiritual universe and deeper into the physical universe as time went on. I had the typical kind of a nerdy childhood upbringing. Then I ended up in the military, got lower, hit a real low. I don't recommend down here. This was a very low point in my life. And then the rest of the life has been kind of going back up. And about 40, I had a major spiritual experience. And then since then, I've been kind of staying in all the different vibrations at once, which is what makes me unusual. Most people focus in on one. I'm kind of in all of them. So that's why this is a little bit scattered. And as previously mentioned, I'm a general human disaster, but that allows me to give a truly multi-dimensional presentation. All right, so a little bit of quantum mechanics. Okay, so unless you're a nerd, you might have heard this, but most people aren't very versed in it. I'm not going to get into the mathematics at all. That's way too far in the weeds. But this is just some very basic concepts here. So one concept from quantum mechanics is called wave-particle duality. This is the concept in quantum mechanics that says every particle or every entity may be described as either a particle or a wave. Basically, everything is a particle and a wave, but not one or the other, but both at the same time. So we all know of things as waves or energies or physical or particles. Albert Einstein's famous equation equals mc squared kind of pointed to that the energy of something is equal to the mass times the speed of light squared. Everything is energy and mass, a particle and a wave. It's not one or the other, it's both at the same time. So, and again, the limitation of this definitions in quantum mechanics, which gets very deeply into the mathematics of it, is that it describes things as particles or waves, like it's a binary thing. In reality, humans experience the universe on a spectrum. Spiritual people tend to experience things more wavy-like. Scientists tend to experience a little bit more particly or like fit or physical. All fields of human endeavor have kind of intuitively sensed this. So we have a lot of pairs of words that point to this part of the universe being particle or physical, the other part of the universe being wavy or spiritual. Physical versus spiritual, Newtonian versus quantum. If electrical engineers, time domain versus frequency domain, body versus soul, materialistic versus philosophical. If you're into the religious people, the demonic versus the angelic, the evolution versus creation. So two very different ways of looking at reality. And again, most folks tend to kind of view it as one or the other, but both exist at the same time. And I'm going to try to maybe what this video is in the book I'm writing. It's a way of trying to get those two sides of reality to play a little bit nicer. Famous equation in a famous experiment in physics. It's called the double slit experiment. If you don't know what that is, I recommend you check it out. But the quick and dirty version of it is if scientists are shooting photons through double slits and they're looking at them, they're trying to detect them. The photons behave like little balls of matter. They behave in a physical way. If they're not looking or observing it, what do those photons do? They behave like waves or energy. And that's just the way the universe tries to behave. If you're studying it, it kind of crystallizes into like a physical form that can be measured. But then as soon as you think you got it figured out, when you look away, those photons can break all the rules of physical reality because you go back to being a wave or potential. So in general, humans experience both sides of this. A lot of people experience a combination of the two. Again, spiritual people kind of concentrate on this, and more. It's a greater numbers of human beings experience a particle universe. So the wavy universe. This is my description of it. But if all the major saints and the spiritual big guns throughout history, Gandhi, Jesus, Buddha, their description of reality, if you take away the details, it's kind of a similar thing. So all exists as a unified reality. Any energy radiated out from any source returns to it. Karma. That's the big rule of the universe. This universe, it exists outside the construct of time. So there's a feeling of patience and immortality exists here as life is experienced as forever. So you experience outside of time. So you can tell you're kind of in this. If you're having a good time, you don't really experience time. You don't get bored. You're just going with the flow. There's infinite freedom, infinite love, and protection is experienced from an immense power that some choose to call God. You feel no separation from this power source. Traditional religions seem to point to this universe when they use terms like heaven, paradise, and lotus land. If technologically inclined, if you're a nerd, you can think of this as the energetic internet that runs the whole show. And another thing, it can't be conveyed unless it's experienced. So probably a lot of people thought I was nutty in my experience, my description of that. Then there's the particle universe, which most people is their primary way of experiencing the world. It kind of behaves like a computer simulation, actually. So this universe, physical universe, is inside the construct of time. It's run by a tight set of laws, rules, much like a computer program is. So Newton's 3 laws learned in a traditional physics course are an excellent primer for these rules and a basic understanding of this particle universe. Traditional science is always in the process of learning the precise details of these laws. Entities experience themselves as not as one with each other, but as individuals. So all motion, forces, all that stuff play out in this universe. So I'm going to summarize quantum mechanics really succinctly. So I apologize if it's a bit of an simplification, but the particle universe is a time-delayed reflection of the wavy universe. And if you look into Eastern philosophy, they'll say the particle universe, the physical universe that we see and feel, is an illusion, and the wavy universe that we feel in meditation and prayer is actually reality. And most of the world kind of sees it as the other way around. They think that the wavy universe that you experience during meditation and those peak moments in your life, that's the illusion, and the physical world is like that. The buildings, that's the real universe. But you can think either way you want. I'm just telling you what quantum mechanics and the great spiritual leaders of all time have said. So The good thing about this universe is humans, we have multiple tools. I'm an engineer, so I think of things in terms of tools. We have different tools for exploring this universe. And I'll get in a little bit about my theories on autism too. So the chakra system. I'm not going to go into the details of this. There's books written about this that go way more in detail. These are the traditional colors, not the colors I'm referring to later in this, but this is just a way of visualizing. They're typically called the crown, third eye, throat, heart, solar plexus, sacral, and root chakras. And they all kind of provide a way of looking at the world. Big picture, the bottom three chakras are our ego. It's how we look at the world in an animal way. It's through the physical body, and it looks at things in terms of the particle universe. Now, the throat, third eye, and crown chakra, those are our ways of looking at the universe through like a wavy lens, a spiritual lens. And then our poor heart chakra is the one that kind of like goes between and kind of interfaces between the wavy universe and the particle universe. And human existence is very hard because we're constantly stuck. I've heard it referred to as the animal-angel conflict, because we got our higher selves that want to do the right thing, but we're in this animal body that likes to eat, pleasure, it likes to have sex, and these two things can disagree on occasion. The heart tries to resolve it, and again, the lower chakras, those are the most particle way of viewing life. The higher ones are the most wavy view of life. And again, it seems this is kind of like the angelic pulling on us, and this is like our primitive animal pulling on us. And again, humans are somewhere in between. So, autism. I'm autistic. I'm not read particularly well on autism, but I'll give my shot at what I think autism is. First of all, it's neither good nor bad. It's just different. There's people who try to make it into a superiority, and a lot of people try to make it into a bad thing. It's a different way of viewing the universe, and it's a person that relies a bit more on the upper a little bit more on the upper chakras to explore the universe. So, but the downside of that is you're a little less functional on the lower animal chakras. So in my case, my third eye has always been open. I've always been able to sense energy really well. So that's why I'm able to convey this multi-dimensional view of the universe. But the downside is, I mean, if you ever met me, I'm just socially awkward. I'm never really on the same same frequency of everyone else, and everyone else is always looking at the physical world, and I tend to look at the wavy world or the spiritual world a little bit more, which made being an engineer really hard, by the way. But again, they all have their purpose. All right, so the big law of the particle universe, Newton's third law. This is what karma is, and applies all the way up. So Newton's third law: for every action force, there's an equal and opposite reaction force. So this is a picture I love. How to become a pirate. So whenever you put a force in one direction in the universe, it automatically produces an equal and opposite reaction force. So forces always exist in pairs. So if this poor girl fires this gun, you know what's going to happen. That huge force going out is going to cause a recoil force, and she's going to be in pain. So that's a basic law, and it applies up through the dimensions. So Newton's third law is just a physical version of it. 100 Newton force to the right immediately causes 100 Newton force to the left. But a slightly more sophisticated way of saying this, in more of a karmic way, is any individual being or particle forcing their will on another individual being or particle will eventually experience that counterforce. So basically, whatever you do to others, in enough time, you have to experience the other side of that. And so Yeah, and the whole world of logic and cause effect is built around this dynamic of the universe. So the wavy universe sees that the particle world of forces and counterforces is all game. Everything is just getting its own energy back. It's not really interested in judgment or changing everyone. We're all in the perfect state of evolution, and you become more interested in peace, love, divinity, and in humor. At some point, it's just all funny because it becomes obvious. Anyone who's trying to force their will on somebody else ends up having someone else's will force on them. It's just the way karma is playing out. It's a divine comedy, but all of physics to me is an extension of this law. So a particle spinning on one side of the universe will cause an opposite spin on a particle on the other side of the universe. If an electric field gives rise to a magnetic field gives rise to an electric field. Everything has to balance at the end of the day. So now the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. So simply stated, the Heisenberg uncertainty principle is the position and the velocity of an object cannot be measured, cannot both be measured exactly at the same time, even in theory. The very concepts of the exact position and exact velocity together, in fact, have no meaning in nature. That's from the Encyclopedia Britannica. A slightly altered version of that is the more one tries to understand the universe through the mind, the more elusive the heart becomes. And the more one tries to understand the universe through the heart, the more elusive the mind becomes. So science tends to be mind-based, art tends to be heart-based, and they're trying to both give a description of reality through opposite ends. I attempted to do like a mathematical extrapolation of it. So maybe this is the heart as one's tries to view reality through the heart. Their understanding of heart-based reality becomes better and better and better. But on the other end, as one tries to understand the reality through the mind better and better and better, you see that the other one declines automatically. The Buddha said the central way or the middle way was a way of looking at it, which is a way of saying you have to look at reality through the heart and mind together. So when you just combine the masculine mind and the feminine heart, that's where you end up with reality. In this dimension, the masculine and the feminine, they just tend to fight a lot. So, and then another version of the potential cross is you got the divine masculine, which wants to see reality in vertical hierarchies. This is better than that. Peace is better than war, values truth and justice. It likes logic, it likes numbers. Then you got the divine feminine, which sees reality, everything as horizontal, everything's worthy of love, all creation is valuable, values love and equality, and it tends to like colors. So now I'm going to get to the main point of this thing. All right, so these are different bands of consciousness, or the vibrational bands of consciousness. And if I go back to my original slide about me, I've kind of been in all of these before. I recommend the higher ones rather than the lower ones, but all the experiences are needed. So notice I use, so Dr. David Hawkins is a spiritual teacher. He has a scale of consciousness. These numbers are from his scale. And then there's another system called spiral dynamics. They actually have another scale describing the bands of consciousness, but it uses colors. I found over the years, now I sense people's energy as part of my autism, and actually, so part of my autism, I'm already going back and jumping around. I stutter, and what that stuttering is, I get a lot of my information from the third eye, but then language is physical. It's describing it's physical words and sounds. So I think I have a tough time translating the way I perceive things into a language that you understand. So if my language is awkward, English has always seemed like a second language to me, even though it was actually my first. Um, and because so I stutter and my language is awkward, and that's because I'm trying to translate this into this, and it's just not a perfect process. I'm not going to attempt to make it perfect. So, all right. So levels of consciousness, or the vibrations of consciousness. So and you see in general evolution, things things tend to evolve from the bottom up, and then your experience of time changes a lot depending on which vibration you're in. Down in the zeros, or what I kind of pick up as a beige energy, your prime decision making, the duality that you experience is pleasure versus pain. You're trying for forced survival, which means you're going after pleasure and you're avoiding pain. That's kind of how reptiles and like lower forms of life think. And their experience is almost all particle. It's physical, and humans experience all of these. And the reason why we need, but the reason why we need both a color descriptor of this and a number descriptor of this is because numbers are very masculine. So we need to, at some point, try to attempt to say, I'm experiencing reality here or reality here. And everyone tends to have a home base. If you're interested in where I kind of hang out, most of the time right now, I hang out somewhere between the reason, kind of sciencey dimension, and the love dimension. I basically love everyone, but I don't I'm not I have peak experiences up here, but those are rare. And then I do fall to the bottom. I have my problems, but my home base is between the four and 500s. But that's me attempting to put myself in a single spot, which doesn't really exist. You really can't put anyone absolutely in a single spot. Now, the weird people who like read auras, probably most of you have a friend somewhere that they're a little bit weird and they can kind of sense people's energy. They'll tell you that everybody has a little bit of everything in them. And another intuitive understanding that comes from that is that none of these are inherently better than any of the others. But that being said, my personal experience is it's way funner experiencing this version of the universe, the higher versions, than the lower versions. But back to the lower versions, we got this this reptile level of consciousness. When it manifests in humans, addiction's a major thing because you're just chasing pleasure and avoiding pain, and drugs just provide a very easy way to do that. It's and you live in a lot of fear down here because you experience yourself as an individual cut off from the whole. The next level up in the 100s on the Hawkins scales, it's purple on the spiral dynamic system, and this is like the mammal level of development. You're very interested in winning and losing here. And this is where the soul begins to develop concrete thought. It can strategize, and it can analyze physical reality. And there's a pack mentality here. You tend to follow whatever your group is doing, and that's a way of staying safe and maximizing your power. You stay in the group that you perceive is powerful. My spirit animal is a wolf. My Native American astrology, I'm a wolf, so I see things in terms of pack. And in general, I find the 100s are kind of like wild wolves, and they're seeking power. And a lot of humans are in this band of consciousness, or this vibration. And I'll go into this level a little bit more later. Then we got the 200s, which is called red in the spiral dynamic system. This is where the soul begins to learn integrity. It's dealing with issues of order versus chaos. So as we go up this scale, you're experiencing time from a higher and higher view. So in these bottom two levels, you're just experiencing the physical world or the particle universe all by itself. Here you're getting a little bit into the wavy universe. So you're starting to experience spiritual reality a little bit. So you start seeing there's a little bit more to reality than just atoms bumping around in a random way. And because you're seeing reality from a slightly higher time view, you realize no matter what's going on in the physical universe, integrity wins in the end. So so if you're a hardworking blue collar guy, and a lot of like hard workers tend to be in this dimension, where this level of consciousness might just decide to go out and get drunk one night because from a pleasure and pain standpoint, you'd get pleasure immediately. So that seems like a good idea. Here you kind of learn, wait, but maybe resting up, having a quiet night at home, and then working hard at a job you might not love, doing that, being integrous, treating other people well, you realize that kind of wins out in the end. And if you're acting in a very lower conscious way, even though you can get the illusion of getting things done fast, unfortunately, there's forces and counter forces, and so karma kind of catches up with you. So here you realize integrity wins at the end of the day. The honest people, even they may lose in the short term, they win in the long term, and that's kind of what the time experience. Here you're dealing with real power that acts slow, and here you're dealing with like fake power forces which produce counter forces. So it actually isn't, but it acts fast. And here, like the martial arts are popular in this dimension because you're trying to take that animal and energy and you're trying to channel it into a spiritual direction. Now, the next dimension up is what's called the blue, or the 300s. This is where like enthusiasm starts coming in, and there's positive people in this dimension. They think in terms of a positive and a negative a lot. And here you realize even more, you got even a further out experience of time. You realize that positive energy and good intentions tend to win out over all this stuff in the end. And here you have enthusiastic people. So I don't want to create controversy here, but the best person I can think of that's an example of someone who's in this dimension is Donald Trump. He is enthusiastic, and you have a lot of power. You're starting to get a lot of like power in this dimension. And for better or worse, what that guy can do with his enthusiasm, he can get people behind his belief system. He got half of America to want to make America great again, and his intentions were positive. Now, the weakness of this dimension is you're not really hanging out in the reason yet. So you can kind of go in a wrong direction. You can make a lot of mistakes because you're just so busy doing. And that being said, this dimension for operation in the physical world actually seems the best because your energy, you can get people behind you, people like you, you're positive. But then when you start going higher, you start getting a little bit weird to most of society, because here you're more in your head, and then as you go up, you tend to be less and less interested in worldly power. The next dimension up is the 400s, or the orange in reason. Big difference between these two dimensions. You'll notice is that the blue dimension will kind of go with the flow. A lot of times, if people, if this is what society is doing, you tend to go along with it. Where the reasonable people will see sometimes where, hey, what everyone else is doing might not be correct. So in the 400s, you tend to start getting a little bit odd. And a lot of the great scientists came from this dimension. If you research scientists, Albert Einstein and Nikola Tesla, they're brilliant scientists. They're always a little bit weird, at least through the eyes of the everyday world, and that's just because you're on a higher plane, and here in time you realize reason wins out in the end, and and now you're so far back in time that you realize that, like, even if it's not in this life, if you're a respectable and honorable a person, eventually everything evens out. So here, there's a scientific view of the universe. Quantum mechanics starts making sense. Um, and yeah, so and you can count it on to do the reasonable thing. The logical fallacies are important. That you know what's really logical and what's just it's like and what's rhetoric meant to control other people. So it's really hard to fool people in this dimension. Nikola Tesla, who was a famous scientist, a large part of our electrical world was because of him. He was unusual because I think he was an early case of autism. So just to give an example here, so one of his peculiar things, in addition that he did have a piece of him that was in the wavy universe. That's where his genius was. But he had a lot of like social oddities. He wasn't as functional in the physical world. So one thing he didn't like was women's makeup and jewelry. It bothered him, and a lot of people just find that really odd. I've always thought, wait, I kind of understand him because I have the same thing. So I tend to view the world. I kind of pick up where everyone's vibe is when I meet them, particularly with females. If they're vibing low, I just don't find them that attractive. And if they're wearing makeup or jewelry as an attempt to make themselves try to appear attractive, I still see their aura. So I'm like, who are you kidding? It almost seems like a little bit of a lie to me. And I think Nikola Tesla saw it the same way, where a high vibrational female, like, and I'll say Lindsay Sterling in my next discussion, she's beautiful no matter what. And a matter of fact, sometimes when she gets really made up, I think it distracts from her natural beauty or her aura, if you will. And on and out, then the next level up are the 500s. These are just generally loving people. You're actually a little bit even more odd up here, because if you're a generally loving person, there aren't a lot of people like you on the planet. If you look around, like generally loving people are pretty rare, about 1.5% of the population by my estimate. But you're seeing the universe from a very high place, and you realize, particularly over like different lives. I don't know if any of you believe in past lives. I'm a certified hypnotist, so I did a little bit of past life regression work and on myself and others. So I believe in past lives. If you have a problem with it, sorry, but here it just becomes obvious that love just kind of wins in the end over a period of over the period of multiple lives. I mentioned Lindsay Sterling. I just went to a concert of hers. And here, when you're at this vibration, your aura carries a lot of power. So even though you're not as even and because you love everyone, you just tend to get love back. And it's just a very people in this dimension, you want to be around them in general. And I enjoyed Lindsay Sterling. And one thing that she's very honest about is, even though she's a very loving, powerful person, she's not afraid to mention that, hey, I got my problems down here. She doesn't present herself as a perfect person. A telltale sign of someone who's trying to pretend to be up here is not is that you go to a spiritual tree and they present themselves as this perfect person, and sometimes you can just see that they're a fake. So they're eating this perfect vegan diet, but then the second that the head is turned, you see that they have a cigarette in their mouth. So, and then the highest one, which when you experience this, um, you're where this is just when this is the one of the highest and there's things above this, but this is as high as where most of the world goes in spiritual experiences occur here. Now we're getting into like the angelic realm. But in here you realize that karma, or what I would call God, just the karmic unity, the quantum field, that wins in the end. This is a very wavy point of view. Enlightened people, this is where enlightened people are. I'm not enlightened, but I've had experiences up here, so I got a little bit of a feeling for it. And from up here, everything is funny. I was just watching a video by the Dalai Lama. He's giggling after everything. Dr. David Hawkins, if you listen to his lectures, he laughs all the time because you just realize everything is a paradox. The Heisenberg uncertainty principle, that's part of it, is you realize everything is a paradox. It's all funny. We're all taken care of. And it's all in illusion, where I tend to rub spiritual and scientific people the wrong way. Is most people have like a kind of a serious view of God and divinity, and angels are all serious. I think I think my experience with spiritual beings is that they think that everything going on down here is hilarious, and that sometimes doesn't vibe. But this place is a divine comedy. But yeah, and everyone kind of fits somewhere in this band. We're all, to a certain extent, we have aspects of this. We all have certain aspects of this in us, but most people center around a certain place. And the better you sense energy, you can kind of tell, and you can also tell to a certain extent how they act. All right. So the biggest world problem, as I see, is projection, and that we all have our energy, and we tend to see the world in terms of that. We see the world through the lens that we live. So we misperceive the world because we tend to assume everyone else is basically like us. So in the depths of a human consciousness, you tend to assume everyone else is selfish. If you're stealing booze from your friends, you tend to assume everyone else is stealing booze from your friends. This tends to, you don't seek help because you assume that no help is out there, but it really is. So the 100s, now you're in a pack mentality, and it's very wild. You tend to assume everyone else is out to get you, and when you're in this level of consciousness, you tend to attract people who are like you. So you're friends with people who are kind of out to get you, but you're out to get them. So it's just the way the game is played in that vibration. Again, the problem is that not everybody is like that. So you tend not to seek help, and you just tend not to seek to seek help. Now, in the 200s in integrity, you tend to assume you're now trying to follow the rules and contribute to society, but you assume everyone else is integrous. Not the case. Now, the prime defects of the 300s is you assume everyone else has good intentions. Well, I said inventions there. I knew this was going to be a disaster, but intentions. A lot of people in my local environment float in this dimension, and it's heartbreaking to watch because they want to do good in the world, but they sometimes get behind false causes because they assume everyone else wants to do good, and then even when they get behind a really good cause, um, they're disappointed because they realize like most of the world is actually not very interested in doing good. That's not being pessimistic; it's just being realistic. Now in the 400s, you've moved into the intellectual realm. So now you're not as interested in changing the world and like being on the physical world, but you want to understand the universe and make sure everyone else understands it. And this is the level where you start really like contributing to the world. And now in the 500s, now you're in a minority of people, about 1.5% of the world. You assume everyone else is loving. I find people here, you tend to have a small inner group of friends that just are unconditionally loving towards you. But then you can be so surprised because you realize most of the world is not. And then in the 600s, a lot of enlightened teachers, they've expressed it in different ways, but you tend not to make sense to other people because you see things in terms of past lives, karma. You're seeing everyone's aura. Most people are viewing the world from a physical place. You're viewing it from a spiritual or a wavy place, and you just find everything is funny. The cause of everything is kind of obvious, and you have to watch your sense of humor here because you're not taking things all that seriously now, but the rest of the world does tend to. So I wouldn't be right if I didn't give any practical advice. So we're all floating somewhere on it. So what determines if you're moving around? Like if you want to go to a higher level? Well, it kind of depends on what you're doing with your life, and and so what your intention does is it creates your long-term destination. So so I like to use the word gravitate. So like if you're spending your time chasing physical pleasure and purposely harming others, what's going to happen is your soul's just going to kind of gravitate down into the beige level or the zeros. You can say like you're creating bad karma for yourself. It's not going to happen overnight, but over time you just see, oh no, I'm falling. If you're seeking power for its own sake or following the pack, this magnetizes. That's another word you can use. Like you're kind of attracted to this purple level. The soul will gravitate towards the hundreds. And now, if you're trying to be the best physical, most integrous version of yourself, your soul gravitates towards the 200s. Or if you're trying to use one's positive energy for the good of others, you gravitate towards the 300s or blues. If you're really trying to understand the universe or inform others, people here tend to read a lot. They're watching documentaries a lot of university professors, the good ones at least, are here. You gravitate towards the orange. If you decide to be unconditionally loving towards all life, you graduate in the 500s. Now you have to be careful because this needs to be integrated in the context of your life. If you're down in a gang in the purple level of consciousness, I mean, it probably isn't a good physical idea to just start giving everyone hugs on the street. You need to progress up through these. So spirituality doesn't mean you can throw away common sense. And then the real big one, if you want to go to the highest levels, and a course in miracles and Dr. David Hawkins' works helps understand this. If you decide to be unconditionally forgiving towards all life and take everything with a humor, that tends to gravitate you towards the yellow 600s, and that's in Eastern terminology that's known as the state of enlightenment. And then the grand illusion here. So we got this spectrum of of consciousness here. So the bottom, this is where you experience the world in a particly way. The top is where you experience it in a wavy way. Now, the higher levels of consciousness, or the higher vibrations, you have a lot of power. You can get what you want, but you're not forceful about it. You don't feel the need to change others. You don't want to change the world, but you get what you want. As when I was really younger, if there was a video game I wanted, I tended to get it. I didn't have to use any force to do it. But then, as I sunk to the bottom, I started using a lot of force, and I put my will on others, because as people move up and down, and I move up and down a little bit more than most. The trade-off between using force and actually having power is almost automatic. And a thing that confuses the world is most people don't know what power really is. What they think power is access to a lot of force, or the appearance of power. So and this shows up in world leaders, like a megalomaniac dictator would use a lot of force. He'd force his population to do things. He's invading other countries, but the use of all that force, all the pushing, it's going to create a counterforce on him. And the dictators, all the Hitlers, the Stalins, it doesn't turn out well for them in the end, because karma will catch up with you. Because if you use a lot of force, the problem is there's no power behind it. It looks powerful because you project a force in a direction, but then you experience a counterforce. So it's fake power. So it happens fast, but it doesn't really produce anything. So when I yell at somebody, I can get them to comply real fast, but then they're angry at me. So and they're gonna want to subtly get a revenge on me because they're angry at me. Where at the top of the scale, you're sitting further back in time. You can see, okay, love, reason, and divinity wins out the end. So you don't need to change anything, because everything's going to turn out okay in the end. So world leaders, like the really great ones, Gandhi, Mikhail Gorbachev, Nelson Mandela, they didn't have to use hardly any force to do what they had to get done, because they just realized how the universe works. Where dictators have to use an enormous amount of force, and but that force creates counterforce, and they tend to collapse in the end. A good example of a great leader that was good in multiple dimensions, featured in the movie called His Name, is Lincoln. Lincoln was a very powerful leader, but to get the 16th Amendment to the United States Constitution passed, that's the one that got rid of slavery. And you see in the movie, he had to use some force. He had to kind of force that through. So he was using both power and force. And these middle levels kind of operate in both worlds. And again, I mentioned blue. It's almost the easiest to be in this physical universe in here, because you're positive. People want to follow you. You have a positive energy about you, but you're still functioning in the particly world. So you're kind of best of both worlds. Here, things start getting really serious, really serious in our age. And here, you kind of start floating above the game. So okay, so I'm writing a book that will go into a lot more detail. I know that this video was a disaster, and that's going to be part of it. So here are the 6 major sources. I recommend any of these. First, Dr. David Hawkins' works, Power versus Force. I was talking about that a little bit earlier. I'm not going to try to describe his work. He's a contemporary enlightened teacher. Check out his work if you want to move up. It will change your life. Course in Miracles, a contemporary spiritual text. Again, changed my life. Spiral dynamics. One thing that David Hawkins is known for is he has a numbered scale of consciousness. So 600, 500s, 400s. That's from his stuff. Spiral dynamics features a colored scale consciousness, and it kind of points to the same trend, but it's kind of a more feminine way of of looking at it. I find that if I want to be very specific, the number scale works a lot better. But if I want to just talk about things in a very broad way, like okay, the colored scale works better, even though they're describing the same realities just from a masculine or a feminine um, uh, place. But biology of transcendence talked about the evolution of souls. You know, like souls tend to evolve from the reptile, the mammal, then they're learning integrity, enthusiasm, reason, love, and then you're kind of in the angelic and divinity realm. This is evolution of the soul. He understood that, but he described it very well in biological terms. This is a physicist, Tom and Campbell, My Big Toe. Long book, 900-page book. If you have weird ideas thinking that this is a simulation or a dream, this is a very logical look at that. If you read this book, you'll have a hard time thinking that the particle world is not a simulation. And then finally, kind of on the same text, this is the universe is virtual. Author's name's Alex Marchand. He writes kind of in a comic book style, so it's very comprehensible. But don't be deceived. Even though it's a comic book style, he's very deep and profound when he said, if you're interested in like the world of a digital and theoretical physics, but don't know a lot about it, or worried that you're not smart enough to know it, I recommend you check out his work, this in specific, but I'd recommend any of his books. As a matter of fact, any of the books by any of the authors here would be great. Anyway, that was my disaster of a video. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll be coming out with a book. I hope more than 2 people read it. May we have a great day, and God bless.